Will everyone please join me in Gasho? The fundamental intent for which the Buddha appeared in the world was to reveal the truth and reality of the primal vow. He taught that to encounter or behold a Buddha is as rare as the blossoming of the Udambara. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam Mandats. Nam Mandats. Nam. Well, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone, first, happy Hanamatsuri, everyone. I know that technically speaking, Hanamatsuri was this past Friday, April 8th. But we are celebrating our Hanamatsuri here at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple. And well, as we can all see from the outside and experience last night and probably later on today, it's going to rain. And it probably also seemed a little confusing because on Thursday, it reached up to 70 degrees here in Tacoma. So it was a pretty warm day. And now all of a sudden, it feels like winter again. So spring probably is one of those times of years when the weather doesn't know how to make up its mind, whether it wants to be winter still or if it wants to head into summer. But either way, this is a time where we celebrate the birth of our founder of Buddhism, Prince Siddhartha. Usually on this day at the temple, our members pour sweet tea over the little prince's head to symbolize the bathing of the Buddha, as well as the sweet, fragrant rain that fell on that auspicious day. And there was a lot of parallels to this in the coming days, especially with the rain that's been happening recently. And one of our wonderful BWA members, June Wellett, when we were setting up the Hanamido, created a spray bottle for me to spray the flowers on the Hanamido with. And she put a special fragrance in there, like it smelled like honeysuckle or like sweet smelling rain. So when I was spraying the Hanamido in the past few days, I was thinking, well, this is also going in line with the legend of the birth of Prince Siddhartha. The sweet smelling rain was falling down. So I was feeling very filled with the wonderful feeling of Hanamatsuri as we were preparing the Hanamido for the Hanamatsuri today. Well, I am certain many of you on this Zoom remember the colorful tale of Siddhartha's birth, with all the little details that embellish the story that may seem somewhat fantastical today. So you all probably remember that there's the white elephant that entered into Queen Maya's side, and when she was on her way in Lumbini's garden, she birthed the Buddha he wasn't the Buddha yet. She birthed Prince Siddhartha from her right side as well. And it was said that she actually held onto a branch, and then the tree could tell that the birth was about to happen, so the branch lowered itself so she could hold on to it. Once the Buddha was born, once Prince Siddhartha was born, Prince Siddhartha took 7 steps, and with each of those steps, these flowers bloomed where the young prince stood. And then, of course, as you all probably remember, the statue that's inside of our Hanamido, the Buddha with the right hand is pointing up, and with the left hand is pointing down. And right after birth, little Prince Siddhartha spoke and said, "Beneath the heavens and the earth, or beneath the heavens and above the earth, I alone am the exalted one." So this is a beautiful and colorful story about Prince Siddhartha's birth. But actually, I would like to talk a little bit today about a little after the Buddha or Prince Siddhartha was born to the Shakya clan. So probably some of you remember the part of the story where the great seer named Asita came down from his meditation in the mountains to greet the king and queen and celebrate their wonderful birth of Prince Siddhartha. And as Asita gazed upon the child, now remember, Asita is a soothsayer, a seer, right? He really could see something wonderful about this little baby. And he said, well, I can see 2 outcomes happening from this Prince Siddhartha's birth. One possibility is that your son will become this great conqueror king. He will conquer the world and be one of the greatest kings that ever lived in history. Or he will become a wise man and save all of humanity with his teachings. Now, King Śuddhodana, his father, being a king, naturally wanted his son to follow in his footsteps. So he said, no, I don't want him to become some old, penniless wise man. I want my son to become a very powerful, strong king. So what did King Śuddhodana do? King Śuddhodana sheltered Prince Siddhartha, wanted him to experience nothing but the kingly life. But now coming back to this day, I wonder if we all of us here on this call, have experienced some kind of expectation from our parents at one point or another. Maybe in a more modern context, we felt the pressure from our parents to go to a very good college or pursue a career that makes a lot of money, maybe a doctor or a lawyer. I sometimes wonder what my parents thought when I wanted to pursue the ministry. I know some of you on this call, some of you already, all of you on this call already know that one of the previous ministers here at the Tacoma Buddhist Temple was my uncle, Reverend Dean Koyama. And during my last days in college, I privately, I should say, started consulting with Uncle Dean to ask him about what life is like with the ministry, because it was during my college days when I really started to think about, and maybe I think I would like to become a minister. And so Uncle Dean and I had some private conversations on the phone, and we were, talking a little bit about that. And then it was a couple of years later where we all gathered at a family dinner. It was my father's side of the family. So for context, everyone, Reverend Dean Koyama is my father's younger brother. So we were all gathered at this wonderful dinner, and we were all having a nice conversation, and I was sitting across from Auntie Linda, Reverend Dean's wife, Auntie Linda, and she looked at me and she said in front of everybody, "So Tadao, are you still interested in becoming a minister?" My mother nearly dropped her fork, and my father had this bewildered look on his face, and he was, "What?" He had no idea that I was thinking that I would go or had any idea or any aspirations of going into the ministry. Now, for the record, I should say that my parents never, ever discouraged me from going into the ministry. My parents have always been really, really supportive, and they weren't too much of the traditional quote unquote Asian parents where they expect me to always to always get A's or become a doctor or become a lawyer or that kind of a thing. But they did, however, have a little bit of concerns of me becoming a minister. And, privately in conversations, they told me, Tadao, ministers don't make a lot of money, or, Tadao, minister is a very public job, and, it's going to be a really demanding job, and, Tadao, and, I would get a lot of these conversations with my parents. Regardless, I became a minister, and here I sit before you today. And I should also say that with my parents' conversations and my conversations with Reverend Dean Koyama, this wasn't again, they weren't trying to discourage me. I wouldn't say that they were trying to force their will upon me, not as strongly as King Śuddhodana did to Prince Siddhartha. But even when we think about King Śuddhodana, even when we think about this situation, we realize that this type of love, right, this is a parent's love of their child. And at first, we want, and me not being a parent yet, but I know from my parents' experience on me, all they wanted was the best for me. And the same can be said for Prince Siddhartha. The same thing in his situation. So I sometimes wonder, like, what was going through my parents' head when it was initially brought upon that I wanted to become a minister. Back to the story of Prince Siddhartha, we remember that King Śuddhodana wanted to shelter his son from the outside world, only surrounded him with luxury and pleasure. Yet by doing this, he ensured that his son would eventually follow the opposite path that he originally intended. When Siddhartha finally made the decision to leave his luxurious lifestyle and pursue the spiritual path, I am certain that it caused the king initial great distress. To put it in modern context, I am certain that this would be the equivalent of a parent seeing their children choosing between either becoming a powerful CEO of a strong company like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, maybe not, or the other path of becoming a struggling artist, or the equivalent of seeing those people who play guitar. You see people who play guitar on the sidewalk in public, and they have a little hat that catches change or something like that. And again, this isn't to belittle the artists who perform in public, because I've actually gone by and seen many talented people playing on the sidewalk and in public, and they have some wonderful talent. But again, it ensured that it ensured that this again is sort of the anxiety I think that many parents have for their children in their lives. Despite how things turned out, I wonder if Asita's prophecies came true. I wonder if both of his prophecies came true, in that Siddhartha, becoming the Buddha, conquered the suffering of all humanity by sharing the teaching of the Dharma, and thereby becoming both. Maybe the term of becoming a great king was a subjective term. Maybe it was up to interpretation. Maybe the type of conquering that initially King Śuddhodana had in mind of being a great conqueror king was different than what Asita had seen. And maybe he would definitely, we could definitely interpret that the Buddha became a type of conquering king, but not in the warlike sense, but in that conquering of all human suffering, and thereby fulfilling both prophecies. Which brings us back to the Gosandai for today's Dharma talk. As Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, we are grateful and celebrate Prince Siddhartha's birth because he would eventually reach enlightenment and teach the larger sutra and of Bodhisattva Dharmakara's primal vow, which also saves all of humanity. Without the birth of this prince, we would not have such a precious teaching to take refuge in to this day. In this way, Asita's prophecy came true, as all of us today still gather, even if it is virtually, to continue celebrating this auspicious birth, and it has already been over 2,500 years since the birth of Prince Siddhartha. I would like to thank everyone for joining us today on this momentous occasion of Hanamatsuri. A big thank you to all the people and organizations who helped to put this service together. And let's hope that we will be able to experience this service in person next year. But until that time, I wish you all well, and please try to stay safe. Start stockpiling on allergy medicine, because I myself am starting to get the sniffles from all of the beautiful flowers, but the pollen is getting everywhere. I mean, it's a good thing, but it can cause some allergies. And everyone, please stay safe and stay healthy as best as you can. And of course, as most importantly, say the Nembutsu. Please join me in Gassho. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Nam Mandats. Nam Mandats. Nam Mandats.